Problem 3 wants us to find the slope, the distance, and the midpoint between these two coordinate points. So the slope, which we use the letter M to stand for slope, is simply, I told you that expression, fire. If there's a fire, you rise with the Y's and run to the exit. Rise with the Y's and then run to the exit. It's the change in the Y's over the change in the X's. So all I'm going to do is subtract my Y's divided by subtract my X's. Slope is always a fraction or a number answer. It is not an ordered pair. So let's subtract my Y's. Do you want to do 1 minus negative 5 or negative 5 minus 1? It doesn't matter. I'm just going to go 1 minus the negative 5. Now the key is, since we started with this Y, we must start with that X. I don't have an option. Negative 5 minus 1. What's this with this? Let's see what this gives us. That changes to a plus, so I get 6 on top. Negative 5 minus 1 is negative 6. Boom. We have a slope of negative 1. That means it goes up 1 to the left 1, up 1 to the left 1. That's just its slope. Easy to calculate. Same formula always you've done since 8th grade. Change in Y's over change in X's. Subtract your Y's, subtract your X's. If you start with this Y, you must start with that X. You could have started with this Y, but if you'd done that, you had to start with that X. Let's go to distance. The distance formula. Now it's nothing but the Pythagorean theorem. The difference of your X's would tell you how far over you came, and the difference of your Y's would tell you how far up you went. And then to find this total length between the points, it's simply that squared, which is the change in the X's squared, and the difference of our Y's, our height there, squared. You remember a squared plus b squared equals c squared from Pythagorean theorem? That's all the distance formula is. And the distance formula simply says it's the square root, the changes of your X's squared, plus the changes in your Y's squared. Again, this leg is simply subtracting those two X values, and then I'm going to square it. This vertical is the change in your Y's, and then I'm going to square it. And then I end up taking the square root, because you always have this squared plus this squared equal this squared, and then you have to take the square root. Again, we did that in class. I explained it, so hopefully you're good with this formula. Changes of the X's. Well, we really already did it up here. They have a difference of how much? 6. The difference between negative 5 and positive 1. If it's negative 5 degrees outside, and then an hour later it's 1 degree, there's a change of 6 degrees there. So I simply say, okay, 6. I'm not worried about negative because I'm going to square this. If it's negative 6, and negative 6 times negative 6 is going to be the same as a 6 times 6. There's no difference, so don't worry about it. Change of Y's, negative 5 to 1. That's also a change of 6. So I get the square root of 72 here, because that's 36 plus 36. I know that's like 8 point whatever. You can use it on the calculator. I'm going to guess that's about, I think it's 8.5 or 8.6. We'll just go with 8.5. Again, you have the calculator. I don't have one on me. I know 81 is 9 times 9. 8 times 8 is 64. So somewhere between 8 and 9. I believe it's about 8.5. That gives you 72. It is 8.5. I'm 98% sure. All right, let's go to the midpoint. The midpoint, it is the middle point between these two guys. If one of them is located here and the other's here, we're simply trying to find the middle point. Notice it'll be the middle of our X's and it'll be the middle of our Y's. So to find the midpoint, all we're going to do, how do you find the middle of something? If I had a grade of 70 and a 60, how would I find the middle? I add them together and divide by 2. That's how you always find the middle. So that's how I'm going to find the middle here. I'm going to add my X's together and divide by 2, and then add my Y's together and divide by 2. So 1 plus negative 5 divided by 2, and negative 5 plus 1 divided by 2. I added my Y's right here, negative 5 and 1. Added my X's, 1 and negative 5. That's negative 4 divided by 2. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. Negative 5 plus 1 is negative 4 again, plus 2. Divided by 2, excuse me. Negative 2. There's our midpoint. Negative 2, negative 2. Very simple. Midpoint, the middle of something. To find the middle, you always add together and divide by 2. It's 3 different concepts for you, but really they're elementary. We've done them before. You did them in geometry. I know you've done them all in geometry because I taught that class, so I know you did it. You just got to recall it all.